Regarding the reputation for an alien in Ben 10, some may get overlooked by most of the fandom simply due to mediocrity. However, sometimes it's because that alien may be considered outclassed by a future alien who does their job better. There's a few examples of aliens who suffer from this, with one of the prime examples being Ripjaws. Sure, Ripjaws has his uses, but you may argue that there's no point to Ripjaws when you have aliens like Jetray or Amphibian. There's another alien that is often overlooked due to this issue, among other factors, that I felt like dedicating a video to. That alien being the hero who is not Absolute Zero, Arctiguana. Debuting very briefly in the classic series, Arctiguana would be the first ice alien to appear in all of Ben 10. While Arctiguana seemed cool on paper, he would be tossed aside in favor for another alien who dominated when it came to cryokinesis, which we already know at this point is Big Chill. Now, most of the fandom will probably tell you that Big Chill makes Arctiguana outright pointless, but while rewatching episodes that included Arctiguana, I began to notice traits that could honestly help give an argument to how Arctiguana possibly has use cases over Big Chill. For this video, I want to discuss everything there is to Arctiguana. This of course includes his character designs, abilities and how they're utilized, other appearances outside of the show, and most importantly, why I think Arctiguana isn't as pointless as someone may think at first glance. I'll go more into why as we go along the video, but for now, let's start properly talking about Arctiguana by going over his character design. Arctiguana is a polar manzardil from the planet Zenelli, and would first appear in the classic series episode Ben 10,000. Arctiguana is one of the most unique aliens in classic in both design and use case. While not the first alien to have the quadrupedal body type thanks to Wildmutt, Arctiguana still has a pretty unique take on it. Arctiguana is a reptilian alien, and as such has the appearance of a lizard, hence the name Arctiguana. Although if you ask me, I will always stand by the fact that he looks way more like a shark than any iguana I've ever seen. At least more so in classic. Arctiguana's anatomy honestly kind of reminds me of a turtle, something that's more emphasized in Omniverse, but I still find it somewhat noticeable in classic. The light blue skin combined with the black and white uniform makes for a really good mesh of colors. In fact, the way his body makes use of light blue and slight shades of white makes him look like a creature that's been frozen over. Not to mention that there's some small details you may overlook that makes Arctiguana's design pretty cool. While stuff like his dorsal fin and gills are pretty obvious, his fingers have these very unique indents, and his teeth kind of resemble ice picks you would see on a fence or something. I also like how his feet are just stubs. Usually there's like 2 or 3 toes or something, but having them look like, I don't know, Minecraft feet is pretty cool. I also like that his facial markings overlap past his mouth. Speaking of his mouth, wow, I suck at segues. In the classic series, Arctiguana is voiced by Tom Kane, who does a pretty good job as the alien. One thing I really like about Arctiguana's voice is that he always sounds like he's in a freezer, and there's a windy sound effect whenever he talks as well.
I don't name. I don't know. Absolute Zero.
How about Arctiguana?
Cool.
It's also pretty cool how you can see his breath whenever he talks, regardless of the temperature of the current environment, due to how cold his breath is. Power-wise, Arctiguana's main trait is the ability to use cryokinesis via ice breath. With this ability, Arctiguana can freeze anything in a matter of seconds. As we see more of Arctiguana's screen time, we will not only see how crazy this simple power can be, but we will also see a few other abilities that can help set Arctiguana apart from his ghostly adversary, and just to have charm as an alien on his own. Speaking of screen time, for the classic series, we sadly don't get much to really talk about. Besides Arctiguana's first appearance in Ben 10,000, his only other appearance in the original series is a very quick cameo in Ken 10. Both of these episodes only have Arctiguana use his ice breath once, and then dip. But to be fair, in Ben 10,000, you can give credit to the fact that Arctiguana's ice breath ultimately defeats Vilgax, being stuck frozen in the water. Given that we know how strong Vilgax can be, not being able to break free from the ice regardless of his position is pretty insane. There's also a small moment where Present Ben helps Ben 10,000 come up with Arctiguana's name. A fun little interaction that I felt was worth mentioning. Now it is true that Arctiguana defeats Mott Snickrep in Ken 10, but I don't find it nearly as impressive compared to freezing Vilgax. Especially since this villain's debut is in this episode and only appears in this one scene. The only real charm to this guy is the fact that he's a reference to the GOAT, Tom Perkins. Sadly, these are the only 2 episodes we get for Arctiguana in the classic series. And if we just go by these 2 appearances, it's pretty understandable how one can see Arctiguana as pointless, not only due to Big Chill usurping Arctiguana in terms of power kit, but a lack of screen time in episodes to really shine as an alien on his own. Thankfully, we do get more screen time thanks to Omniverse. So can they take advantage of the opportunity to give Arctiguana good utilization across any of the 80 episodes? Before we talk about the screen time Arctiguana has in Omniverse, let's talk about his character design and how it changed from the original series. So Arctiguana's design in Omniverse kind of confuses me. The reason I bring this up is because... wait, what's that sound? Oh shit, I'm getting a call, hold on. Hello? Oh hey Arctiguana, funny timing. I'm actually in the middle of doing a video about you. What's that? You called so I can have an excuse to make a sitcom-related ice pun like in the Big Chill video? Thanks, I actually wasn't really sure where to put that now that you mention it. What's that? Oh right, I guess I should talk about that before I go over your Omniverse iteration. Say, you think people will recognize what sound effect I'm using for your dialogue? Yeah, you're probably right. Well, I'll talk to you later, Huh? What? What do you mean you made it snow in New York and New Jersey again? They just had a blizzard and saw grass for like a day. Why'd you do that? Wait, because it would be a cold day in hail for them? Oh, Arctiguana, I could never stay mad at you. A Tundra Laughs with Arctiguana will be back after these messages. And don't forget after to catch a premiere of the new sitcom, Vlad to the Bone. Mess with this batty group of roommates and you'll be in the doghouse. Okay, I'll stop now. Before I talk about Omniverse's implementation of Arctiguana, I should discuss his brief, and I mean really brief, use in Ultimate Alien. If you thought Ghost Freak or Ripjaws had an awkward middle stage, you haven't seen Arctiguana's. All he gets in the show is a hologram behind Ben 10,000 while he uses his ice breath without transforming. Pretty lame. We do get a design for Arctiguana via Ultimate Alien's intro, which may as well be the same as Classic's design, with the only main difference being the badge placement and being a darker shade of blue. Now, despite not actually being in the show properly, for some reason or another, Arctiguana was given a figure for Ultimate Alien. While it is confusing as to why they bothered giving Arctiguana merch for Ultimate Alien, given that there's aliens in the show who never get merch period, it's still pretty cool that an official Arctiguana figure exists. While I'm on the subject of merchandise, I should briefly mention how Arctiguana appears in a Ben 10 comic, this one being titled The Once and Future Ben. In this story, both present Ben and Ben 10,000 team up to fight Vilgax. Not only do we see Ben 10,000 use Arctiguana as you would expect, but also present-day Ben. The design for present-day Ben isn't any different sadly, but considering that this is a comic from 2008, which had questionable plots, the effort to even show Arctiguana is appreciated. This, alongside his cameo, if you could even call it that, in Ultimate Alien, isn't nearly enough to help Arctiguana make an argument for having any use cases over Big Chill. So now let's actually talk about Omniverse Arctiguana, as this is where my defense for Arctiguana's place in Ben's roster properly begins. So the Omniverse design when compared to Classic seems like a downgrade for the most part. A lot of the traits that made Arctiguana feel unique didn't carry over to Omniverse. Things such as the jagged icicle teeth, the stubby feet, or cracks around his mouth are no longer here. Despite this, I actually prefer his design in Omniverse. I like the more turtle-like proportions, and the Omniverse art style gives Arctiguana some really charming facial expressions. Between 11 and 16-year-old Ben's design for Arctiguana, I prefer the 11-year-old design for the badge placement and the exposed chest. The stripes look really cool, but the 16-year-old design covers it up entirely sadly. The facial markings are also more accurate to the original design, which is cool I guess. Remember how I mentioned briefly that Omniverse's design confused me? That's because for some reason, Arctiguana is the only alien to retain the black and white uniform from Classic, which is honestly a shame because I think a green uniform has potential to look really good on Arctiguana, so long as the pattern is designed right. I should take this time to mention some alternate designs for Arctiguana we see in the show. Albedo uses Arctiguana and has the black and red suit as you would expect. He also has more dark grayish blue skin, which looks pretty good. We don't get 11-year-old Arctiguana in the show proper, but we do get Ben 23 using the design for his version of Arctiguana dubbed Freeze Lizard, so it is pretty cool we technically did get this design somehow in the show. On the subject of 11-year-old Arctiguana, a lot of people have an issue with Arctiguana being in 11-year-old Ben's roster, which I never got. From what I can tell, it's because it makes Ben 10,000 having Arctiguana less special to some, but for me, I always found it really cool. This is because we get to see when exactly Ben gets one of the Ben 10K aliens, and in Arctiguana's case, being when Ben is 11. As for Arctiguana's voice, he is now voiced by Eric Bauza. When Arctiguana speaks, it's in a Jamaican accent, which I honestly barely notice with the exception of a few lines. And like in Classic, you can also hear a windy sound effect whenever he speaks. While I think that Tom Kane's voice sounds cooler, I do find a lot of charm in Eric Bauza's performance as well.
Arctiguana? Cool. Literally. No worries, Gwen. I finally got an alien I know how to use. I'm the real Ben 10. Trust you? Last time you stole a DNA repair gun and sold it.
Since they bothered with 2 Arctiguana designs plus 2 variants for Ben 23 and Albedo, this must mean that Arctiguana was used quite often in the show, right? By now we know this song and dance. Arctiguana barely had any appearances, which is kind of odd given how Omniverse made effort to give a spotlight to a lot of the classic series aliens over UAF aliens with similar abilities. Let's try to remember, however, that it's quality over quantity. So with this in mind, can Arctiguana make the most of his limited screen time and stand on his own when compared to Big Chill? Well, to find out, let's start by talking about his very first appearance in Omniverse, which is in the episode Hot Stretch. In Hot Stretch, Arctiguana is used to free some lava flowing through Bellwood, which, by the way, no fucking way you can convince me there wasn't a ton of deaths in this episode. The lava is coming out of the fucking buildings. Unless you're the citizens of Station Square, there's no way you're making out of this alive. While the scene is super short, it does a great job showcasing Arctiguana's powers, which I'll go more into detail when I begin to compare him to Big Chill. His next appearance would be in the episode Ben Again. I love how he uses his ice breath to create constructs to interact with. Making your own ice ramp to slide off of mid-combat is pretty damn cool. Before Ben Prime's final use of Arctiguana, we do get a scene for both Ben 23 and Albedo. In the episode Store 23, Ben 23 uses Arctiguana, or Freeze Lizard, to fight Tetrax. I love this fight scene as it showcases some really cool utilization of Arctiguana's ice breath, and honestly just showcases how strong and agile Arctiguana can really be. He's crushing cars simply by landing on them, and pushing a whole ass water tank to crush Tetrax. Like, goddamn, who knew Arctiguana had hands? And for a few brains more, Albedo uses Arctiguana for a brief moment to chase Ben. During this, Albedo uses Ultimate Arctiguana, our first and only look at this Ultimate sadly, who has a really wicked design, and is inspired by my favorite Pokemon, Blastoise, which you can hear me gush all about in my recent Pokemon video at the time of uploading. You don't even get a good look at his full design in the show, and would need to rely on the wiki to view his model art. My only negative for the design, honestly, is the long whiskers. Other than that, I really love how he looks. Power-wise, the only ability I can think of for Ultimate Arctiguana that's different from the original is the giant ice crystals, which is cool, but that's literally all he does. The final appearance for Arctiguana would be in the episode Collect This. While we get an okay showcase of his powers, what I really like is that we get a lot of the charming mannerisms shown. This includes the facial expressions as I mentioned earlier, but also just how he moves in general. When he slowly walks, it's kind of like a turtle, and seeing him rush towards someone like how a real-life lizard would is pretty neat as brief as it is. Also, the sound he makes, it's like really cool, but why is this the only time he makes this sound? While that's it for Arctiguana regarding the show, he also made some appearances in the Omniverse video games. In the console version of Omniverse 1, Arctiguana can be used to freeze lava that obstructs your progress. There's not much to mention for Arctiguana's moveset, besides the usual stuff you would expect like Ice Breath, but he does have this really cool slamming attack. It's not much, but I like it. 11-year-old Ben also uses Arctiguana, so if you're not happy with his absence in the show, the game should suffice. I love this cutscene where Arctiguana freezes some steel beams to use as a slide. While not needed, I love the small detail where Arctiguana kinda like struggles to keep balance for a bit, and Rook doing some acrobatics to keep up with Arctiguana is pretty cool too. In the DS version of both Omniverse games, Arctiguana has the same moveset, which includes headbutting and ice projectiles. Also, he walks on 2 legs for some reason, which is honestly kinda cute. Even though we didn't get a lot of moments of Omniverse Arctiguana, I like how he was handled for the most part. And as I watched his scenes multiple times in preparation for this video, I noticed some stuff that could potentially give Arctiguana an edge over Big Chill, which I feel gets overlooked. So allow me to bring some of that stuff to light. I won't go too long about my thoughts on Big Chill, but if you want to hear my thoughts on him in great detail, I'll link my Big Chill video in the description. Now, it doesn't take long to figure out why Big Chill outclasses Arctiguana on paper. The one thing in common both aliens have is cryokinesis, specifically Ice Breath. One thing that gives Big Chill an edge is that he can also freeze things via contact, and rather quickly too. Not only that, but Big Chill can also fly and go intangible, 2 very useful abilities for a multitude of reasons. Arctiguana can freeze stuff, but why use him when Big Chill can do the same thing and then some? Arctiguana may not have flight or intangibility, but he does have a few things going for him. For starters, physical strength. Arctiguana is a lot stronger than people give him credit for. Like how in Store 23 he pushes the water tank to crush Tetrax, and even before then, being able to headbutt him on some Spiral the Dragon shit, and the fact that just jumping on cars damages them significantly is nothing to scoff at. Arctiguana may not be able to fly, but he is plenty agile, being able to scale walls thanks to his reptilian-like body. Now if we compare both aliens' ice breath, it is true that Big Chill's can manage, most of the time. But Arctiguana's Ice Breath has two things going for it that makes it, at least to me, better than Big Chill's. The first thing I want to talk about is coverage. Arctiguana's Ice Breath covers a shit ton of ground in seconds, as seen in episodes like Hot Stretch. And while Big Chill can create multiple pathways with his Ice Breath, as seen in episodes like Above and Beyond, Arctiguana's covers more area more efficiently, and faster as well. I also think that Arctiguana's Ice Breath is stronger than Big Chill's as a whole. Arctiguana's ice froze lava in less than 3 seconds. Speaks for itself how insane that is. One episode that showcases this strength really well is his debut in Ben 10,000, when Arctiguana defeats Vilgax by freezing him in the water. We do see Big Chill freeze tough enemies, but they usually break out instantly, such as a meat-crazed Deca or Vilgax to compare it to Arctiguana's debut. I know Ben 10,000's Vilgax is stronger due to mutations and the like, but if anything, that showcases Arctiguana's ice being stronger even more, as Arctiguana can keep an even stronger Vilgax frozen, while Big Chill can't get normal Vilgax to stay frozen for long. I know that Vilgax uses his lasers to break free, but to be fair, later on he does showcase that he can use his strength to break the ice as well, so I figured I'd mention that just to clarify. Now this isn't to say that Big Chill can't get shit done with his ice. I mean, look at what he does to Devoid's machine in Voided. But Arctiguana's ice looks and feels stronger. So in situations where you need to freeze something, I would argue that Arctiguana is the better pick. I know that Big Chill's multiple ice paths are a lot cooler, but the practicality of a giant ass ice beam freezing the entire room in a few seconds is a lot more powerful and efficient. To move on from power scaling for a second, one thing that I appreciate about the two aliens is the difference in fighting style. While Big Chill uses his ice breath in a traditional way, Arctiguana's potential to create ice constructs to alter the environment around him for some creative battles is one of the coolest yet most underutilized aspects about him. Big Chill flying is nice and all, but I wish we saw more of Arctiguana's more lizard-like mannerisms in battle. Besides store 23 in a quick second and collect this, we really don't get any of that, and it could have been like how Shock Squatch doesn't necessarily bring anything new to the table for electric aliens, but makes up for it in mannerisms or sound design. Except with Arctiguana, he could actually bring more to the table thanks to his ice constructs in combination with his lizard-like movement. Combine that also with the hovering via freeze ray propulsion, and you can have some really fun and dynamic battles for Arctiguana, especially with the animation and choreography of Omniverse. One example I thought of is like, imagine if Arctiguana created a bunch of icicles on the ceiling and then like scaled onto them like one by one and did some like crazy acrobatic shit while fighting some bad guys. Like that would be so cool to see. Considering that aliens like Diamond Head have done some really cool and creative stuff with his constructs, I have no doubt that Arctiguana could have done so as well in a similar manner. While Big Chill is no stranger to ice constructs in some form or fashion, I don't think he would be nearly as fun or energetic as Arctiguana could be. Aesthetically, I also really appreciate the difference between Arctiguana and Big Chill's Ice Breath. When Big Chill uses his Ice Breath, it feels like how you would expect it to look like. Kind of like a giant burst of icy wind. But when Arctiguana uses it, it's like a giant laser, which may sound generic on paper, but it does look really cool. Also, when you compare the two side by side, I feel like without any context, if you were asked which Ice Breath was stronger, I would assume most of you guys would probably go with Arctiguana. Now, one thing you might bring up for Big Chill is the fact that his intangibility can also freeze enemies at the same time, which is really good, don't get me wrong, but the thing is that Arctiguana's Ice Breath covers so much more in such little time. At that point, why even bother phasing through enemies to freeze them when you could just snap your fingers and boom, suddenly you're in Iceman stage from Mega Man 1. In fact, Arctiguana could probably cover the entire planet in a very short amount of time. Like, what's stopping him from turning an entire country into a tundra wasteland? Not to mention him freezing over the oceans. Now, I'm sure Big Chill has the potential to do this as well, but Arctiguana's proficiency in coverage and speed for his Ice Breath is what gives him that upper hand. Now, with all this in mind, would you consider Arctiguana to be pointless? If you were to ask me and you couldn't guess by now, I would say no. I could just say it's better to have two aliens who are good at the same thing over one and call it a day, but I wanted to bring some attention to some really cool aspects of Arctiguana no one really brings up, because I feel like they weren't given enough spotlight to notice right away in the show. Arctiguana is an alien whose opinion has shifted a lot for me over the years. As a kid, I found him to be just okay, but as time passed, I began to see things about him that made me appreciate him more as an alien, and I'm hoping this video helps you guys appreciate him more as well, and maybe even see him as valid as Big Chill in terms of being a part of Ben's alien arsenal. But as always, I want to know what you think. How do you feel about Arctiguana as an alien? Is he a favorite of yours? You like him just enough? Have no real opinion? Or just want to give this guy the cold shoulder? How do you feel about his stance against Big Chill? Do you think he has genuine use cases over Big Chill? Do you think the two are at a tie in terms of usefulness? Or when compared to Big Chill, Arctiguana is about as useful as Zelda 1's map? And out of curiosity, which of the two do you prefer? I appreciate you guys for stopping by, and as always, happy night hunting.